Camera, mic, all set. Ready to go whenever you are. Well, welcome to another episode of CM Director Japan. I'd like to introduce our guest today, Peter MacIntosh, a Canadian entrepreneur, mixed media artist, and geisha culture expert based in Kyoto. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Sure. All right, let's get right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, I come from Halifax, Nova Scotia, east coast of Canada.
Yeah.
Played professional soccer until I didn't. The team went bankrupt, so a short-lived professional career. I retired at 21, finished my last year at university, and then was going to go to do my master's in journalism, but I decided I'd take a gap year. And why not go make some money in Japan and travel around the world and go back and do my master's was the plan. And September 23rd, 1993, I arrived here and never left.
Nice. All right.
Been a while.
Yeah, Japan is the place.
It was, took a little more courage to do it back then. Naivety, courage, insanity, I don't know, but.
For sure, back in 93, not as easy as it is to do it today. With all the information
traveling was a
online.
little different. You know, I don't say it's better or worse, just different. You know, we had to use paper maps and, you know, and pay phones and things. Yeah.
All right. So Peter, what does the world of mixed media arts mean for you? And how did you establish yourself as a geisha expert in Kyoto?
Well, mixed media, I mean, you know, titles and labels, you know, I talk to my friends, you know, they say, are you an artist? Well, I guess I am. I make art. What type do you do? Well, I do photography, I do painting, Indian ink painting, flower arrangement. I studied a lot of traditional arts and I just make stuff. I'm just a dude who makes stuff. And I guess I call myself a mixed media artist because I use different medias. And it's the easiest label, you know, because especially if you live in Japan, they ask you, what do you do for a living? If you say, I do this, this, and this, and this, you lose them after number two. So mixed media artist or, you know, photographer, you got to give them something. So, yeah, I'm just a guy who likes to create stuff, make some cool stuff, whether it's with a camera, a brush, a pen, talking, whatever. And most of my art focuses mainly around the geisha world.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so that brings me to our next question. So you have quite a popular documentary online called Real Geisha, Real Women. It seems very popular, very down to earth. How did you get into documentary filmmaking?
Well, first, getting into the geisha world was interesting because one night, I like anyone, I saw my first geisha in Kyoto, and I kind of was, you know, wow, white-faced porcelain doll walking down the street, and I was just starting to get into photography, so I kind of followed them around, took pictures, or you know, with a Japanese friend of mine. And then one night, I went into a bar on my way home, sick as a dog, shouldn't have been out. I went down in this club, like a disco, we called them back then, and I saw Michael in full regalia, and then she left. So I decided to follow her outside. She was sitting there. I guess her customer was waiting for a taxi, and I tapped her on the shoulder, and which I shouldn't have done. And the Japanese guy came over and said, "Hey, where are you from?" I explained. He goes, "Let's go." We hopped in a cab, and then I had a sugar daddy, basically, to put it short. For the next 6 years. So that's how I got my introduction in the geisha world. And what got me into having that connection, this was in 93. And I think Memoirs of a Geisha, the you know, the world-renowned novel came out in 99 or 98, 99. So of course, I was probably one of the only foreigners to have connections at that time as a customer, thanks to Ito-san, my sugar daddy, I like to call him. And so I got into the world of fixing in a way, not just fixer, but also interviewee and fixer / interpreter.
So what is a fixer?
So fixers, I guess we call them location scout, coordinators, you know, especially when any film crew or any media comes to a foreign country, they don't speak the language. You know, like Anthony Bourdain, every country he went to, he had a fixer in the country that set up stuff for him. So I did that. In the beginning, it was more interviewee / set up some stuff, and then I get into fixing. And so then watching people make films and documentaries and TV shows, and I got to see, you know, a different side from I was basically a stills photographer. So I got to see a different side of the action part, and I wasn't really happy with some of the outcomes. I felt I wasn't really into thinking about making a movie, but I saw a lot of documentaries that were kind of forced. Can you get them to say this? They need to say this, or the script's not going to work. I'm saying, you got a script for a documentary? It's like, shouldn't you just like show what it's about? And so I was kind of confused. So I said, well, maybe I should make a documentary. I know the women, they trust me. So I saved some, I used my own money, got a friend of mine, they kicked me a bit of money, and asked one of my filmmaker friends who had made documentaries to do my editing and shooting for me. And I wrote the script, produced, and directed it.
So you saw an opportunity and just used what you had.
Well, I just thought, I'd give it a go, and believe me, it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be, but I'd learned a lot, how crews worked, and, especially just doing it with two people, it was interesting. And, but I think the women who I interviewed trust me, they opened up. There is the wall came down, and there's many reasons for that, because I knew them.
Right.
Not just pop in, pop out type thing. I also paid for their interviews. They're professionals. You don't ask people to do stuff for free if you're a professional. And they trust me that I wasn't looking for this scoop, or I wasn't trying. There was no ulterior motive. It's just like, and so that's why I picked the title Real Geisha, Real Women. Not saying that real geisha are real women. It's real geisha, real women. They're women, and they're real geisha. They're not princesses. They're not prostitutes. They're disciplined artists who have a cool job.
Right. Yeah, I love the name. So kind of like just to reflect the down to earth nature of the whole
show
thing.
them as people. They cry, they laugh, they get drunk. Hopefully not too often, but but they're very disciplined. And I just thought it was a wonderful part of the culture. And don't put them up on a pedestal. Just show them as real people, who they are. And I think that's what gets lost when people talk about geisha. They have to label them as this. What is a geisha? I don't know. What is a wine?
I'm sure there's a lot of stereotypes based on geisha, for sure.
Well, yeah, ukiyo-e prince, the courtesans are mixed up with the geisha. A lot of misinformation, just something we don't really get in the West. I worked with a German journalist. She came over for 6 days, and we spent time together as a fixer, and she not lived amongst them, but spent a lot of time with them. And at the end, she goes, "Peter, I still don't get it." I said, "You know what? You don't have to get it. You just have to understand that it exists." And she goes, "I'm cool with that." And that's great. You don't have to get everything,
So how did you come up with the storylines for your film, for your documentary?
Well, it's funny. In the geisha culture, especially Kyoto geisha culture, which I focused on, there's like a ritual kinship. The mother of the house, a big sister, as we call it, who takes a underling under their wing and kind of mentors them. So that was kind of the main triangle that I based the whole story around. And just basically, wanted to tell stories, wanted to show them doing different things, not just singing, dancing. One of the girls opened a cosmetic business. Another woman, she tells her story when she was sold into prostitution. Not into prostitution, sold into geishahood and not prostitution when she was 7 or 9 years old. I can't remember.
Yeah, I saw that in film.
In the 1920s. So, and then other girls went to, I just wanted to show them, as I said, just, get rid of the generic interviews and the stereotypes. Of course, beautiful dancing, kimono, and, the beauty shots had to be there. They have to be there because that's a very big part of it too. But I think, showing them as people hasn't really been shown before. Even the tea houses in Kyoto City, they always, look at how Kyoto sells Kyoto City. They don't show the modern housing, they show the temples only, and just like a lot of, most geisha documentaries either try to, go for this, I don't know, the misconception part or the flower on the wall part, the porcelain doll part. So I tried to, I didn't come in with a very strict storyline, but it was fluid and also very flexible, and pretty much let them dictate how it was going to go.
Yeah, I loved your approach, which leads me to this next question. Shooting geisha does not sound easy. What were some challenges you encountered while shooting your documentary, like access, money, trust, technical issues during the edit, or whatever?
Well, first of all, the access, ichigen sa no kotowari, first time visitors are refused. Not so much these days, but more so back then. And, you know, it was hard, the trust. You had to be a trusted customer to even meet with the geisha or be taken with a trusted customer. So not only that, and money. A lot of people, I remember I worked with a couple of people like, I don't pay for interviews. I'm like, well, you're not going to get a good geisha documentary or a good geisha interview. They're professionals. You get paid for what you're doing. Why shouldn't they get paid for what they're doing? So of course, paying, and it's not cheap.
So you had to come up with all that money to.
Well, I put, I don't know, I probably put 10 grand up, and I got 10 grand from a friend, and probably another, probably cost between, I don't know, 15,000 to 22,000 US. So, yeah, so we came up with it, no debts.
Exactly.
Yeah, everyone's happy, I mean, if you pay someone, they're happy to talk to you. The difference is paying someone out of respect because they're professional, and paying someone to do something, they're not actors. I'm not paying them to act. I'm paying them just to talk.
For their time.
Yeah, and people think, well, how, if it can't be a documentary if you're paying. Well, yes, it can. Obviously, it was.
Yes, for sure.
And then you have, access gives you access, and trust gives you access. But trust also puts pressure on you to not cross the line.
Exactly.
Oh, did you get the shot of her, playing on her cell phone? Well, or did you? One of them was, for example, I don't know. When you watch the documentaries, I went to a girl's hometown to see her party with her classmates for New Year's, and believe me, that was a party. She was there with her classmates, and then had a few drinky winkies, and there was some footage that probably would have been pretty hilarious, but not necessary to tell the story.
Right.
And that's where the trust comes in.
Right.
If I was just a fly-by-nighter who came in to get a scoop on the geisha, it would have been great. But I would have lost all respect, and I would have lost my contacts, and I lost trust.
Yes.
Unless it's something illegal, you're catching something that's going to be like a Watergate or something. There's a little difference. You don't have to know the whole story behind people's lives.
So yeah, they trust you to walk the line, right?
Yeah, and believe me, I'm like, oh, that would have been such a great shot of her with doing those shots of, but But there are some things that I will push back. Well, I don't want you to shoot this. Well, I think you should let me shoot this because I think it's important. So we do have discussions about it. Sometimes I lose a discussion. Sometimes I win a discussion. And just because I'm paying for the interview doesn't mean they have to do it either.
Right.
I'm paying you, so you got to do it. No, it's not like that either.
So with documentary, I know that you have to collect like tons and tons of footage. Was there any difficulties in terms of, sifting through the edit, or did you edit yourself? Did you have an editor, or?
Well, I'm not very tech savvy and never was, still not. So my friend John Wells, who was the camera guy and director, sorry, not director, editor. I watched him edit it, except when I took a snooze a few times when he's. But a lot of footage,
Well, that's helpful. It's helpful to have like an outside editor because, it gives a fresh eyes, or and you want someone there that's going to kill your babies sometimes.
Well, especially when you're so close to the subject, like I still am. Like some of my photography, I'm like, I don't like this photo. People, what are you talking about? It's so awesome. I'm like, oh, I don't get it. Or Peter, no, you think this is real cool, but people won't get it. So as you said, the fresh eyes, someone who I'm making the documentary for me in a way, but also I'm making it to tell a story. Not tell a story that I already know, tell a story that I would like people to know. So sometimes I take for granted or I assume that people already know stuff that they actually don't know. So having an outside eye is very, very, helpful in that way.
Exactly. So I noticed your doc has almost like 1 million views on YouTube. How did you market your film, and what opportunities have come from the film since it's gained its popularity?
Well, I think I had already had a bit of a reputation as the geisha guy on a couple Facebook group pages and stuff. People knew who I was. They've seen me on documentaries. As a fixer, I didn't only fix, but I appeared in the documentary, so people knew me from that. So I had a bit of, I wouldn't say a following, but people knew. And I'd only put it on like 4.5 years ago on YouTube. It was made 11 years ago. So unfortunately, I didn't market it very well. Didn't make any money off it, except for my $70 I make every couple months off YouTube. But and I sold a few DVDs in the beginning.
Mhm.
Did a couple showings, but didn't get accepted in any film festivals.
But
But it was
didn't it?
basically it was a labor of love for me, basically. So it
Right.
wasn't like the guy who gave me 10 grand, invested, not invested, semi-invest, semi-supported me, a banker friend of mine. He would have liked to seen it make a lot of money and get some cash out of it, but for him, it wasn't really about the money. But being a banker, he would have liked to seen some.
But didn't it help give you opportunities like to establish you as more of an expert, or to kind of like showcase that
Well,
for
it
you in
actually
Kyoto?
did. It actually did. It gave me a chance to I got hired at Kansai University as a Tokubetsu Hijokin Koshi, which means a lecturer in the specialty. So
Mhm.
I taught geisha culture at Kansai University for 8 years to foreign exchange students. So,
Great.
I got it, once a week for the first semester for 8 years. Yeah, that gave me, kudos in the geisha community and then in the anthropology community a little bit, and also that was a stepping stone for me to get paid for doing lectures like other events and emceeing
Like
events and stuff.
one-offs.
Yeah, just so it's a stepping stone, just whatever. And it's so great. I have no regrets,
That's
but
great. Yeah. So it's a great, yeah, it sounds like a great stepping stone. So what other kinds of projects like do you do, or what kind of services do you offer kind of based off your expertise in geisha in Kyoto?
well, in 2002, I quit my high school teaching job and decided, people knew, obviously I knew about the geisha culture and I was getting paid to talk about it for TV shows and as a fixture. So I'm like, no one's doing walking tours. So I started doing geisha walking tours to the geisha district.
In 2002.
2002. So I quit my
Wow.
job, jumped in,
Mhm.
not just didn't just dip my toe in. I dove in 100%.
Not
Of
easy to
course,
quit your
financially it
job.
was terrible. Yeah.
Not easy.
No, unfortunately at the time my wife had a job, which covered the bills, and I had 3 months of unemployment insurance. But that was during the Japanese Soccer World Cup, so a lot of World Cup watching, not working. But anyway, it started. Started working with some travel companies, so I started offering geisha parties for VIPs and walking tours and lectures, and kind of turned into an event company. Kyoto Sights and Nights is my event company.
Right.
And so that's been in business 2000. That was kind of like the breadwinner. And then I do geisha photography. I've done shows.
Yes. I've taken a look on your website. A lot of great photos.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. And I try not, of course you got to take the pretty pictures. You can't not take a picture of a geisha in front of cherry blossom. Well, come on now, it's beautiful. Might not be the most original, but it's beautiful. And for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
this picture behind me, this is for example, right here, there's a little tear in the coat. People might have photoshopped that. That's the back of a geisha, a Michael's neck with
Right.
the 3 prongs, and it's on her debut. And this is her raincoat she's wearing. But that little tear, people could Photoshop that out, make it pretty.
For
No,
sure.
this is what it's about. It's worn and torn. It's a real geisha.
Right.
Even in my photography, my first article I wrote was for the Kyoto Journal, Real Geisha, Real Women, and I talked about it as them just being real women. And so that was the whole theme. So I've been trying to capture them with whether it be essays, short films, video clips, my Facebook page, Real Geisha, Real Women, my Instagram page, Real Geisha, Real Women. Trying to get out of the the generic stuff. So yeah, my whole art projects have been around the geisha. I guess I do other paintings as well, and which is great. But I know I've been shooting the geisha for 28 years. It's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. So, as a mixed media artist, have you ever been given advice that turned out to be unrealistic, backward, or counterproductive?
Well, the whole thing I mentioned earlier, like I don't pay for interviews. Well, thank God I didn't listen to that idiot. I don't even know where he is these days. So good luck.
Mhm.
Um, I just I think I haven't really given. I never really listened to anybody. I just did my own thing because I never thought I was an artist or a filmmaker. That whole, I had this complex. I was a jock. What am I doing making films? It was kind of like Jiko Manzoku. Just did it for myself in a way. And so, I've never once had filmmaker on my business card.
Right.
But so, you know, Bad advice, I guess no one gave me bad advice, but seeing people forcing people, asking people to say this just because they had to fit their storyline because they only had 2 days to shoot and stuff. I kind of learned what I didn't want to do by more from observation rather than verbally.
Right.
And
So you learn what to avoid.
what to avoid, and my John Wells, my editor, he had made films before, and he gave me wonderful advice as I was working.
So what is, yeah, it's a great point. So what is some advice you would give aspiring filmmakers or artists or coming up these days who want to start and who want to shoot in Japan?
Okay, first of all, anyone, get over yourself. It took me a long time to get over myself. Like, no, Peter, you can do whatever the hell you want. Especially now, there's so much opportunity. Stop talking about it. I listen to people. Nothing pisses me off more than people say, "You know what I'm going to do?" No, do it. Shut up. Do it. That's the only thing I can say. And yeah, get over. You don't have to call yourself an artist. You can call yourself. People said, "Peter, what?" I remember this is a funny story. I'm in a restaurant and the owner's right, a French cafe, and the owner's there with me, and a Japanese guy goes, "What do you do for a living?" And the French owner goes, "Hey, he's PeterMacIntosh.com." I like, it says, "What does that mean?" He goes, "That's what he does. He's Peter." I'm like, "That's pretty cool." So, I actually bought PeterMacIntosh.com.com.
Right.
That's a joke. I don't use it, but yeah, you don't have to, consider yourself a filmmaker, an artist. You just do what you got to do, and hopefully you can make a living doing it. And if you don't make a living doing it, just do it. And in Japan, though, I think, I don't know, I haven't shot in other countries, but I can imagine it's more difficult. You got language barriers, cultural barriers. The bull in the china shop is what people came in for 3 days and they didn't care what they left. It was like arashi no yona, like what do you call it? A storm just came in, and as soon as they left, you saw the debris like a tornado.
Right.
The debris was left over, and
Left a mess.
yeah, be careful when you're, just be, and
Leave things how you found it.
Yeah, don't be a selfish creator, to be quite honest, unless it's like going to save lives or it's a scoop that's going to, show a scandal, or like that's going to save lives, or, something really important. You don't have to piss people off just to get something, because people click like on it and they'll forget about the next day. And you pissed off a lot of people, burnt some bridges, that bridges are a lot harder to build than to take down, So be careful, especially in Japan, because earning the trust is very difficult. Losing it is quick as a whip.
Good advice. Great. Thanks, Peter. So every project requires different gear. What kinds of gear do you commonly use, whether it's a camera, whether it's brush, or you can even talk about what you used on the documentary if you want, or.
Yeah, I use a cheap Sony camera. It's about $3,000. My filmmaker, I said, let's buy something. Here's the budget. He bought it. I didn't know anything about it. Honestly, when I made this documentary, I knew nothing. I knew the story. I directed, produced, and wrote it, and did the translations, subtitles.
Did you film as well?
I did a couple. I did the Europe thing because he couldn't travel to Europe. When the geisha are traveling to Europe, I was pushing their luggage in the airport on this little cam, right? Andy cam.
Right.
It was one of the better semi-pro cams, whatever at the time. Can't remember what it was called, but yeah, now as photography, I use my digital camera. I was on film in the beginning, but I tell you, this thing, my iPhone, I do most of my photography on this. I do have we were shooting a documentary recently 4 years ago. We started called Geisha Renaissance, and then things happen. It's been on, a lot of footage that is just sitting in the can, so to speak, not edited. That's still there. We bought a nice camera that we use, but I wasn't shooting it. I hired a cinematographer for that.
Right.
It's some problems, so that's kind of been put on hold. But I like to paint. I use brushes, pens, my mouth, to talk, to do my art. There's verbal art as well, lectures and emceeing events. And so yeah, hey, give me something. I'll try to do something fun and creative with it. Give me chopsticks. I'll stick them in my hair and do, I don't know, I'll play out a geisha skit for you. I don't know, anything that's fun and people will enjoy.
Perfect. So I got to ask my, what artist or filmmaker influenced or inspired you the most and why?
This is the most embarrassing answer I can give you. Nobody, because I'm not saying that nobody is that impressive that they would influence. I just didn't know anybody. I didn't. I watched movies growing up, not films. I didn't watch many documentaries. I was a jock,
Hmm.
and I got into photography, self-taught photographer. I studied traditional Japanese art, so everything was just use what I got. I
Hmm.
I like Spielberg, I like Woody Allen movies. I like Coppola
Hmm.
movie. I mean, I like filmmakers movies. I don't know much about documentaries. As I said, I learned most of my what not to do is by working on films. I was a location
Exactly.
scout for Memoirs of a Geisha. I was on the set of Last Samurai for a day to see some of, I saw the behind the scenes a bit of a lot of stuff. So it was kind of, those people influenced me. And the people who really influenced me the most, whether it be photography or essays I write or films or whatever, anything I do, it's the people I'm shooting. They're my
The
biggest
subjects.
influence. They're my subjects. Yeah, the people. They're my biggest influence. And there's this my favorite quote. I mentioned it a little earlier, maybe Annie Leibovitz, who she's a
Hmm.
great portrait photographer. She one of her quotes that I like: "Shoot people you know and who will put up with you." Like,
Yeah,
that's a great way to start. Don't jump in the deep end. Kind of jump in, but make sure it doesn't go. You're not above your head anyway. And,
exactly.
especially people who will forgive your naivety or your beginner mistakes or whatever. So, you know, and that's how I guess everyone around me. For example, I'll watch something you do. You will influence me in a way. I'll watch anything I watch influences me. I don't need I don't need to, of course, my paintings. I like Picasso. Did he influence me? I don't know. I'm not doing cubism, but I like his stuff. And, anything. I'm walking down the street, I see a butterfly. That influences me. I see a cup of coffee when you put the milk in it, and the way it comes back up and explodes like a little. I don't know. That influences me in a way. So, not. I don't want to say creators. What they make influence me, not so much. I don't even remember how. Can't even name 5 photographers.
Right. Okay.
That's pretty embarrassing to me. I can't believe I'm saying this on video.
No, 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 no. It's fine. It's fine. So next question. What do you think about the emerging NFT metaverse market and the potential impact for creators?
I think it's way above my head, but very, very interesting. I'm very interested in making NFTs and the metaverse thing. I'm just kind of, learning bits and pieces about it as we go. But any avenue that gives creators a way to express themselves, I think it's wonderful. Doesn't matter what you call it, where it's old school, new school, whatever,
True,
future
true.
school. I think just any way, it gives, how would I say, the less intimidating it is, the better. Because I know me, when I started getting into the arts, it was intimidating. It's like, what are you doing? You didn't go to this school, you can't make this. And I think with the new technology, it's taken away that kind of wall that
Yes, a barrier.
but a camera, you could do something.
Hmm.
iPhone, a lot of people take great photos with this, and you don't have
Yeah.
to go to a fine art school. Not that saying going to an art school is bad, but you don't have to. And I
Right,
think
right.
with modern technology, it's given people a an easier avenue to enter the world of creating.
Yeah, and to get paid and to keep your rights.
Well, yeah, keep you right, exactly, and yeah, especially I think like the NFT, the most important thing or interesting thing I think is that, for example, look at Basquiat. His painting just sold for $110 million. How much did his family get of that? But if an NFT, the original artist can still make a commission every time it's sold, right?
Exactly. You
You
get the
said
royalties.
yeah.
You
So
could,
I
like, for
think
example, you could get like 10% every time it goes down the line.
exactly, and I think that is very important. They do it in
Yes,
television shows. Seinfeld made $500 million off Seinfeld.
exactly.
So
And that's how it should be, right?
exactly, and I think that is that's probably my favorite part about the NFT market is if I die and my art sells for $10, my wife gets a buck every time someone sells it for $10. Or something.
Exactly. How it
You
should
know,
be.
exactly. That's the way it should be. And then so you're not fighting over royalties and this and that. It's already in the contract. I think it's
Exactly.
wonderful. That's probably the most interesting part about it for me. I think, yeah,
I'm sure you have tons of pictures or artwork that could be NFTs for sure.
fingers crossed. Yeah.
All right.
My wife's like this. I know every day. Yeah.
Let me see. Last question here. As your love for the arts evolves, how have your goals changed, and where do you hope to be in a year from now
Well,
with your art?
I think my goals have become goals. It's not just, I think they've changed from a side hustle or a hobby, semi-professional, to like I'm all in now. So I think that has changed. And COVID gave me the opportunity to do that. You know, as much as it's been devastating financially for me, it's also been a blessing in disguise. You know, it's given me the time to restart and just think about things. So that's been wonderful. And in a year from now, you know, I've been writing a book for 20 years, essays on the geisha, and hopefully I'm going to get it done. I got like 4 books I'm writing. I got a lot of short video projects. I got a couple exhibitions I'm working on. So,
okay,
yeah, you know, where do I want to be? I want to be doing this full time, creating full time.
great.
That would be the goal, and I think it's an achievable goal.
I think a lot of us want to get there.
I think, you know, it is, but I think I also realized, as I said, I got over myself. You know, I am an artist. You know, even I just cringe just saying that right now, but I am. I create, people buy stuff. You know, hopefully they'll buy more, and that's what I do. I just create every day. But then, you know, that's what everyone wants to do. So,
Yeah.
And wanting to do it is great. That's the first thing, wanting, and then just not talking about doing it. You know.
Excellent. So finally, you said this a little. I guess you alluded to a little bit of this, but what else are you currently working on right now, if you can say, and where can people find more about your work, like in terms of social media accounts, etc.?
Okay, well, you know, doing a lot of photography now, editing photos. You can find me. I got like, so.
Yeah, and I'll put the links in the description too. So
PeterMacIntosh.com for my main website. It's got to be redone. I mean, all my stuff is so old right now. I'm not tech savvy and getting it all sorted now. But Real Geisha, Real Women is on Instagram, and Facebook. They're not always the same pictures. They're a little different, 2 different audiences. Same as in the documentaries on Peter MacIntosh on my YouTube channel. Not much film here, but I'm doing some shorts. I'm working on some shorts. Studio P/Gallery Kofu. That's where we are now, my studio/gallery. You can see that on Facebook. We have some upcoming shows in February. Some of our local artists are going to be showing here. I'll be doing something in March. So if you're in Kyoto, just check that on the Facebook page. And so, yeah, I've been doing a lot of writing. That's what I'm working on. I'm going to be doing some more short films. And a friend of mine, Lucy Birmingham Productions, based in LA. She used to live in Japan. She was the president of the Foreign Correspondence Club. She opened a production company when she moved back to LA. We're going to work on a short film of one of the short stories I wrote after COVID. So we're going to shoot in Kyoto.
Nice.
Based on a short story that I wrote. So
I might be looking for a story myself.
Yeah, well, these are goals.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm going to stop just talking about them. I'm actually going to get them started and hopefully finish them. And you know, the world changes on the drop of a dime, and you know.
All right.
But you know, it's nice to have goals that aren't, you know, that are achievable.
Exactly. All right, Peter. So I guess we'll wrap things up there. Cool, man. Thanks a lot for being on the show.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
All right. Take
Always
care.
nice to talk to someone who went to school in my hometown. So
yeah. Both Halifax boys.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much.
My pleasure.